As I came to prepare this address today, I was fascinated by the large number of journal articles and magazine articles written about how to be beautiful. And one magazine in particular said, here are 17 ways to be beautiful within, and another 17 ways to be beautiful without. And there it was. Other magazines and journal articles have gone on to say the same. So how can we be beautiful? A few nights ago, I watched the television interview with a Muslim mother. She's also a grandmother. And she spoke of her hope and commitment to provide the best life for her children and her grandchildren. Her voice was the voice of mothers and grandmothers surely around the world, wanting to provide the best for their children and their grandchildren. Over the past several years, I've had contact with psychologists in Turkey, in Thailand, in Egypt, and in several African countries. Most of them follow the Muslim religion. And they work to bring out the best in their people. They work for the better mental health of their people. They want the best for their children and their grandchildren. Now, we in Australia in recent times have been caught up in a fearful barrage from our political leaders. And with it has come a widespread demonizing of some Muslim people, which has all too easily become a generalizing to all Muslim people, when in fact we know very little about them, and even less about the Muslim religion. We have long neglected our own religion in this country, whatever our own religion happens to be. We can see that the churches of the Christian religion in this country are closing down in multiple numbers, sold up. So along comes a Muslim group wishing to build their place of worship. And many want to oppose it. Do they want to keep their own churches open? They're not even interested in keeping their own churches open. But in opposing the Muslim commitment, they show a great ugliness in human behavior and an enormous ignorance. Do you know there are over 1.6 billion Muslims in the world? 62% of the world's Muslims live right on our doorstep in neighbouring Asia, Southeast Asia. 23 million in China, 205 million in Indonesia, 17 million in Malaysia. Many of you have been through these countries. We overlook that there are 44 million Muslims in Europe, 80 million in Egypt. And so a Muslim grandmother, says she wants the best for her children and grandchildren, just as we would like for our children. We have 500,000 Muslims in Australia. They would like the best for their children. Surely the whole Australian society might join in that project, in that objective. So let me put that aside for a moment. Another concern that's received considerable attention this week has been Mental Health Week, to which I've already alluded. And I'm going to speak about this next week. Today, let me give you a little forerunner. As I mentioned earlier, there's been much talk about depression. We've even talked about an epidemic of depression. What is it? We know so little about it. And so all too quickly we swallow what's been passed out to us, either in the media, sometimes by our doctors. Sometimes people are taking drugs. No, we don't know the value of those drugs in terms of their side effects. And the side effects can sometimes be devastating for children as for adults. We do know this. According to the World Health Organization, there are 350 million people worldwide carrying the diagnosis of depression. 350 million worldwide. For God's sake, what is going on here? We are here today to celebrate life's goodness. And surely to celebrate the way our religion can somehow enhance our lives, give us a different perspective on life, give us different courage and strength to life, some solace and consolation in our life, as a preventive measure perhaps, or as something in itself. But with 300 million people depressed, surely it's time for us to be doing something different. So I'm going to pick out one of the most powerful statements in the whole of your Bible. It speaks the central teaching for the Old Testament and the New. And it says this: "Behold, how beautiful upon the high places are the feet of one who brings good tidings, who points to the way of healing and hope, who asserts that the God of goodness still reigns in our midst." Let's change that slightly and say that the Spirit of goodness still reigns in our midst. So then, cease to be so downcast and depressed. Find your way through to believe in life and celebrate it. That's what your Bible says, written long before the New Testament. Now, many of you have heard me say, perhaps too many times, that I wish I had been able in my professional life to have been able to have gathered together a group of wealthy, thoughtful, caring, insightful men and women and establish a school of beautiful behaviour. I'm frequently astonished at the amount of money which is spent on our weapons of war. This magazine, Scientific American, an excellent magazine, but it publishes how much money is being spent on various items of war. The bomb in the Manhattan Project, $23 billion spent on that. It ladles them all out across the world. How much money is being spent on destroying other human beings and destroying other properties? But even on top of that, it goes into looking at the Mars project, going to Mars, the Mars Science Laboratory. $2,650 million spent on that so far. We don't need anything like that amount of money to establish a school of beautiful behaviour. But we need one, surely. I'm frequently inspired also and astonished by the small, uncelebrated stories of people who search for and find ways and words of healing and hope. Something beautiful. They hear something beautiful coming from the high places, beyond them, around them, within them. But so quickly it is stifled. So for some years I've had this mad idea, a school of beautiful behaviour. Of course you might say, who would go to it? Who would pay for it? Who would qualify as teachers in it? All that. But before we chop the wings off, when the wings haven't even started to form, let me say, yes, a school of beautiful behaviour is needed for our young people trying to find a strong purpose and vocation in their life. A school of behaviour is needed for people in their middle years, burnt out, can't be bothered, lost the vital balance in life, ready to join the 350 million of the depressed people of the world. And you know too of my commitment to the old and the very old people. Now the very old people say, this is no laughing matter, this growing old business. But then some will say, I hope I won't live much longer because it's painful. There's not much fun in it. They've lost what I call the future fantasy. And they don't hear the birds singing anymore. So I'd like to put to you some what I call essentials. The essential parts of a school for beautiful behaviour. And as I do, I'd like you perhaps to see that I'm really generalising it to our lives anyway. I'm going to put it in two major parts. First, the reactive part. Reactive, and then I'll take the proactive part. The reactive part. I see the need to establish a program to reduce resorting to aggressive, accusatory, angry, antagonistic behaviours. All too readily coming to the surface and bubbling around us in our ordinary day-to-day groups and in bigger groups within the community. Amongst males, domestic, intimate relationships, amongst the ethnic and racial contexts of life. This requires studying how these behaviours become preferred behaviours, become impulsive behaviours. We need to see what is the damage done, what is the cost, and how can we find alternative behaviours as the preferred behaviours. So number one is to reduce our widespread angry, aggressive behaviours. Number two, to reduce the politics of destructiveness and dehumanisation and divisiveness. Too much of it, from high places to everyday life. The politics of destruction, dehumanising the other person, making them into objects that we will destroy, being divisive, them and us. We've been so accustomed to the politics of violence that we hardly think there's anything wrong with it, when in fact we need to enter the politics of dialogue and discussion. Some of you might remember that so much of World War II suffering, could have been prevented, could have been avoided, if the leaders of the time could have stopped searching for military fame and conquest and sat down and talked, found a different way, a preferred way of negotiation. We saw it, all of us, I think, saw it more particularly in the wake of the Vietnam War. During the Vietnam War, we had to fight and escalate, expand the war. Until at last, they said, but we've got to sit down and talk. Of course, some said, we can't sit down and talk until we've belted hell out of them. But ultimately, we sat down and talked and reached some agreement of how two groups might live together. And now, in more recent times, we're seeing the same thing happening in Syria. Almost too late, having destroyed so much, or in the process of destruction, people are now saying, it's time to talk. Let us come to the negotiation table. That's the reactive approach, number two. Number 3, we need to reduce our adherence to fear and distrust in our everyday relationships. Many of these behaviours are woven into our lives since childhood. Distrust and fear. Reducing fear and distrust in our relationships. And entering into a discourse with better objectives. Things can change by us hearing the possibility. How we can be more seriously authentic in looking for that alternative to distrust and fear. So I put there three reactive possibilities. 1, reducing aggression and violence and angry behaviour. 2, reducing the politics of destructiveness and divisiveness and dehumanisation. And 3, reducing the adherence to fear and distrust, right down to our everyday relationships. Now, part 2. I'm going to talk part 2 about proactive processes. We might be open to the astonishment of discovery. The discovery that there are good people in the world. From the First World War, we discovered that the Turks were good people. Notwithstanding the battle lines adopted in Gallipoli, the Turkish people, good people. From the Second World War, the Germans have become important partners in building a new world. Right into the present time, who was it that gave the substantial lead, the humane approach to resettling the asylum seekers? The Germans, the German government. From the Vietnam War, the Vietnamese settlers in this country have become model citizens. In the Japanese War, you would know that I too would say again and again how Japan has become one of our major, if not the major trading partners. Discovering that prejudice is another expression of violence, and yet discovering that there are better ways. Point 2 of the proactive approach. A whole field of excitement can await us in the study of resilience after a terrible experience. Our terrible experiences can produce enormous suffering, great cost. But the study of resilience can intercept that suffering for thousands upon thousands of people. The study of release from long-term negative emotions. The study of reconciliation as a better way than retribution. The study of what I've called reshape-a-lessons, reshaping life and yourself after some distressing period in your life. The study of those R's, resilience, release, reconciliation, reshape-a-lessons. 3rd, the study of some basic laws of engagement. This is part of my program, if you like, for building a more beautiful world. In our Big Tent project, meeting last Thursday, for those of you who are new, the Big Tent project here in this place is a group of kindergarten field officers. They go into kindergartens where a kindergarten child, 4.5 years of age, who's having some difficulty, identified by their teachers in the kindergarten. They call in the kindergarten field officer, who's been trained within our system here, And that person goes into the kindergartens to bring some relief to that problem and indeed to turn the problem round, give the staff of the kindergarten new, more productive ways of handling the troubled child. The Big Tent Project has created a wide stir in this country, not only here in Melbourne, across the suburbs, right interstate. I'm pleased and proud to say. But on Thursday, I spoke about the vital experience in early childhood that sets the scene for the ongoing laws of growth for those kindergarten children right through to adulthood. What are these laws? I'm going to give you just a couple of them. The law of authenticity. Too often we are fakes, and we pass on our fakery to our children. Let's stop being fakes. Trust and basic goodness is started in the earliest years, where a child and a parent can learn the tasks and the triumphs of trust. So the first law that I put to you is the law of authenticity, the authentic person. The second is the law of generosity, being able to give, being able to explore the meaning of tolerance. That's generous. Finding the meaning of mutual acceptance, the law of generosity, the law of listening and learning, how to listen, how to be present to a person, how to hear in a different way, how to interpret what you hear. And so I could go on. The law of positive emotions, how positive emotions are better. You know that. We all know that. So why don't we cultivate them? Learn the science of positive emotions. They open the pathways to better health. They open the way to greater happiness. And they make old age more attractive. Positive emotions. And then there are the laws of intelligence. The intelligence of non-destructive behaviour. What's so intelligent about violence? What's so intelligent about bashing each other and rendering each other quadriplegics? Nothing intelligent about that at all. So we need to learn the intelligence of destructive behaviour, and better still, the intelligence of constructive behaviour, the intelligence of living together, as the scripture passage said today. Living together in harmony and peace. The intelligence of aging. The intelligence of intelligence. So there are some of the laws that go with a more beautiful life, a school of beautiful behaviour. So I come to the next part of my address. We live in a time when governments across the world spend untold millions on the science of war. I've alluded to it already. The science of war is the science of killing people, fellow human beings. It is the science of destroying the world's architectural treasures. The School of Beautiful Behaviour ought to have a program on the science of doing good, the science of good behaviour. And as I mentioned already, Scientific American has published articles on this very subject. One urgent task, then, is to translate the science into practical expressions of good behaviour. And another part of my program. I'd like to include in the School of Beautiful Behaviour a segment for extending the boundaries of creativity in old age. It is good that we put such an emphasis on the creative pursuits of little kids. That is tremendously important and good. But by the time we get to 75, 85, 95, 100, we've given up being creative. We don't think they're creative anymore. My SAGE group that I mentioned will soon look at the indicators of health and happiness in people who are centenarians, 100 years old and beyond, because more and more people are now living into that age group. We ought to take account that more and more people are staying alive for longer. A huge population of us, growing year by year, and we just let it happen. And then we fall over. Along the way, we'd like to note these possibilities. Creativity, but so quickly we give up. Do you know Verdi, the composer, was 78 years of age when he composed the celebrated opera Falstaff? Lloyd Rees, I've spoken about him before, well into his 90s, almost blind, remained an active artist. And I'm very proud to have a reproduction of one of his paintings on the cover of my book of prayers, which I used this morning, the book which is called Hope. And that painting was done by Lloyd Rees when he was 87 years old. A magnificent picture. Diana Athill, here's another one of her several books of her memoirs. She wrote this when she was 85. We need to believe in the creativity of older people and aim to join them in our various and unique ways. A School of Beautiful Behaviour will affirm that this is possible, even in spite of many losses. Beautiful behaviour. It involves listening to inspirational music, inspirational stories. It involves the world of birds and butterflies and buds and bridges and buildings. Even to hear the bells ring. Beautiful behaviour. Something beautiful that takes your breath away. Sometimes something good occurs and it can boost you for days. Even though the realities of life crowd in upon you. We need to listen again, you see. Proactive ways for the School of Beautiful Behaviour. One, find some astonishment in discovering good people, beautiful people. Two, study the processes of resilience and reconciliation and renewal and reshape essence. Three, learn again the laws of engagement. Four, teach people the science of doing good, the science of good behaviour. What was that for? 5, extend the boundaries of creativity into our older years. And 6, listen to inspirational possibilities. You see, when we see and hear such ugly behaviour around us, give me the beautiful behaviour. Let me be a creator of beautiful behaviour. All of us can become creators of beautiful behaviour. When you see so much ugly behaviour around you, let us all become carriers of beautiful behaviour. Or I know some will say, what's the point? It's too costly. How beautiful upon the high places are the feet of those who bring good things, who point to the way of healing and hope, who assert that the God of all goodness, the Spirit of all goodness, still reigns in our midst. Of course, I suspect we will see plenty of reasons why a School of Beautiful Behaviour is not possible, will not happen. But believe me, the Spirit of beautiful things will transcend that disappointment. Surely. Let that spirit of beautiful things transcend our disappointments. And let it continue to be a powerful, enhancing energy in your life and in your everyday interactions. And perhaps then You might say, well, we can't see the School of Beautiful Behaviour, but in a way we're part of it, because we're part of that good spirit in the world. Would you please stand? And would you pause for the blessing? May the God you see in all the colours of creation arouse in you a sense of awe and wonder. May the God who is a sacred presence be real to you. May the God who is a source of inspiration and courage keep calling you forwards. May your God go with you and bless you today and always.